The QuickStick build. Hi everyone, Aldbar here. This is a Quarterstaff build who focuses on multiple full 360 cleave attacks. This build has the ability to do a double long jump and also has a fast base movement speed. The attack speed of this build is also exceptional. This build is great at single target DPS, but even more at multiple target DPS, kind of like crowd control. For now, I'm going to hand it over to Warjack to do the rest of the commentary. Hi everyone, Warjack here. For my starting class, I'll be taking Rogue, and for race, I'll be taking Aasimar. I'm taking it for the healing hands, so if you don't have it or you don't need it, you can take any race you want. Our main stat will be Dexterity. You must have, though, 13 Strength at level 1, 17 Strength at level 15, 13 Dexterity by level 4, which you should obviously have since it's your main stat, and 13 Intelligence by level 9. I'll be spending 14 points in Intelligence since I would like to be a competent trapper. If you do not care about traps, you can spend points in Wisdom. As a trapper, I'll be taking full ranks in Spot Search, Open Lock, Disable Device, and spending the rest of the points in utility things like use magical device, and then convenience like jump, balance, also perhaps a little bit in swim, and eventually some in concentration when I get my monk levels. My level 1 feat will be Power Attack. Which Aasimar bond I take is completely irrelevant. This is my character look. You can pause the video if you would like to see my DNA. For alignment, you must take Lawful Good or Lawful Natural, since later we'll be taking levels in Monk. I'm starting off in Korthos and not skipping the grotto because I love this quest. Of course, I'll be asking Jeets for a Quarterstaff. After all, that's what this build is all about. Just a quick moment to set up all of my active abilities. From my past epic lives, I have 3 stacks of healing amplification and 3 stacks of fast healing. From my heroic past lives, I have 1 arty, 2 barbarian, 3 fighter, 1 monk, and 1 rogue. I have +6 to all stats, +3 fate points, +1 to MRR and PRR, and +1 to melee and ranged power. Power attack I already have activated on my shortcut bars. I will be filling the shortcut bar underneath my WASD keys with Trip and Sunder. Throughout the game, I will be continuously pressing the special attacks in the shortcut bar underneath my WASD keys. This is a core mechanic in this build, and you must practice it starting at level 1. Remember that you must activate your Aasimar bond if you want to use healing hands. The basics of playing this build. While attacking, you will be continuously using the special attacks in the shortcut bar underneath the WASD keys. Trip and Sunder will later be swapped out for some very powerful attacks who are the core of this build. Although Trip and Sunder are not very effective, it is very important to get used to using the special attacks using the shortcut bar. This will allow you to really enjoy the build and play properly later on. For the first few levels, we'll be playing as Rogue, so feel free to use light armor. Now we can head over to the bank. I'm going to get my Harper pin, my bags, a low-level Quarterstaff, and my cosmetic. And that's it. We are ready to go. As soon as you get 1 action point, we'll be spending it in Thief Acrobat on the first core ability, which will add dexterity to to our attack with quarterstaffs. Here you can see on my quarterstaff, next to where it says attack mod, it says strength and dexterity. The rest of our level 1 action points will be spent on thief acrobatics, which adds a plus 15 attack speed with quarterstaffs. Watch how the attack starts. You can see on the right side that I am attacking much faster. For level 1, just practice using the special attacks in your shortcut bar underneath the WASD. I actually put 2 copies of Trip and Sunder just to fill up the bar, so no matter where I press, I'm hitting something. At level 2, I'll be taking another level in Rogue. Skill points I'll be spending in my trapping skills, that is spot search, open lock, disable device, filling out all the rest of the stuff that I took last level, and also half a point in concentration. For feats, I'll be auto-granted evasion. I'll be spending my action points on quarterstaff attack and damage, and then spending it on haste boost. For the gameplay, you'll be rounding up enemies, activating haste boost, and then attacking while continuously pressing on your special attacks on the shortcut bar. In this case, it's just Trip and Sunder. Again, the practice is very important. As we gain action points, I'll be upgrading my haste boost. But it's important to remember that every time you do, you must also update the shortcut on your shortcut bar. At level 3, I'll be taking another level of Rogue. Skill points, I'll be spending exactly like last level, that is Trapper skills plus whatever. For a feat, I'll be taking Weapon Focus Bludgeoning. This is very important to be able to take certain core abilities in the Kinsey tree when we take fighter levels. For gameplay, gather a group of enemies, use haste boost, and then attack while activating the special attacks on your shortcut bar. Same goes for single target, and we'll get to why later on in this video. Once we have the action points, we'll be spending them on the second core ability in Thief Acrobat, which will add dexterity to our damage with quarterstaffs. This will also grant us the feat Swords of Plowshares, which adds +1 to your critical range with quarterstaffs. That means that if until now you made a critical hit when you rolled a 20, you will now make a critical hit when you roll a 19 or 20. Also, I will do the final upgrade to my haste boost. Here you can see on my quarterstaff that the damage mod is also strength or dexterity. The gameplay, just like before, use your haste boost and then attack while using the special attacks on your shortcut bar. My final action points will be spent on extra attack and damage with quarterstaffs. At level 4, we'll be taking our first level of Monk. Here I'll be adding a point to dexterity, which is my main stat. For my skills, I'll be taking Spot, Search, and Disable Device, and skipping out on Open Lock. The rest of the points I'll just put into balance. For my class feat, I'll be taking Dodge. As soon as we take one level of monk, we get access to a whole bunch of monk feats. Inside of the feats tab, there will be monk feats. Inside of it will be finishing moves. We want the finishing moves icon, not what's inside of it. This is what we're going to drag to our shortcut bar. And when different finishing moves will be available, this icon will change into that specific finishing move icon. Underneath this, we have the different elemental paths. Each one has inside of it a specific elemental attack and a specific elemental stance. I'll be taking the fire attack and putting it on the action bar next to the trip and sunder. I'll be dragging all of them to my shortcut bars on the side so I don't have to go digging for them later when I want access to them. My first 2 action points I'll be spending on QuickStick. This is a special attack which adds to my weapon dice and adds double strike for a short amount of time. Of course, I'm going to be dragging this to my shortcut bar and replacing trip or sunder. My next action point I'll be spending on sweeping strikes. This is a special attack who adds to my weapon dice and does a 360 cleave and trip attack. Now, enemies might save against the trip, but I'm mainly concerned with just hitting everything. This also will replace trip or sunder on my action boost bar. For the gameplay, we'll be using QuickStrike and sweeping strikes to hit all of the monsters around us. Also, once we generate enough ki from attacking enemies, we'll be able to use the special monk fire attack. Once we use it 3 times, our character will start glowing white. That means we have access to the finishing move. Activating the finishing move will blast all the enemies with fire. This fire is not very damaging, but we're doing this to practice. Later on, we have a much more important finishing move. So do not be lazy. Practice, practice, practice. My final action point at this level will be spent on another charge of healing hands. At level 5, we'll be taking another level of monk. I'll spend my skill points on spot search disable device and skip out on open lock. Also a bit in balance and use magical device. For my class feat, I will take mobility. Now that I have 2 levels of monk, I get access to meditation. This will allow me to quickly regenerate ki if I need, but I've never actually needed to use this. For the gameplay, use haste boost, then quick strike, then sweeping strike to knock everything over and hit everything in a 360 radius, then continuously hit the special monk fire attack. Once you've charged it up to 3 times, you activate your finishing move and blast everything with fire. Continue practicing this. My action points will be used to upgrade quick strike and sweeping strike. And of course, don't forget to drag the upgraded versions to your shortcut bar. At level 6, we'll be taking our 3rd level of monk. For skills, I'll be taking spot search disable device and skipping out on open lock, just like last level. For my feat, I'll be taking spring attack, and for my class feat, I'll be taking fists of light, also known as light monk. Spring attack has a passive component, which adds to dodge and negates all penalties when attacking and moving. More importantly, spring attack has an active component, which is a special attack combined with a long jump. In essence, it means that I can now do a long jump at level 6. Inside of monk feats, you'll now see a whole new list of finishing moves. Ignore all of them. The only icon you ever want is the one that says on it finishing moves. That one will transform into the different finishing move. If you roll all the way to the bottom, you will find Fists of Light. This is the Light Monk special attack. We will be replacing the fire attack with this one. Hitting a target with a Light Monk attack will mark it. Hitting a marked target will gain you a small amount of health. Using the Light Monk attack 3 times will allow you to activate the finishing move. The finishing move gives another small burst of healing to you and your whole party around you. The amount of healing will vary based off things like healing amplification. I'll be spending my action points on the final upgrade of Quick Strike and Sweeping Strike. Quick Strike will now give me +3 weapon damage to my attack and +25 double strike for a short duration. Sweeping Strike will now give me +5 weapon damage on its attack and a 360 cleave and trip. Of course, don't forget to drag the new versions to your shortcut bar. For the gameplay, gather a group of enemies. Use your haste boost, then Quick Strike. Then you can use your Sweeping Strike to hit everyone. Then you can jump through everyone with your spring attack. Finally, follow up with the monk attack, Fists of Light. Once you've done it 3 times, you can use your finishing move to heal yourself up. Continuously doing this, rinse and repeat. Level 7, I'll be taking my 4th level of Rogue. I'll be using my skill points in Spot Search Disable Device and using this opportunity to catch up on Open Lock and use Magical Device. Now that I'm level 7, I will be taking the 3rd core in Aasimar Tree for more healing hands and taking the rogue ability Staff Lunge. Staff Lunge is another special attack that I'm going to be adding to my shortcut bar. Aren't you happy you started practicing early? A fully upgraded Staff Lunge attack is +6 to weapon dice. Here's how Staff Lunge works. Clicking on Staff Lunge will execute an attack with a small amount of forward momentum. This movement will allow you to go through enemies. All of the enemies who are near you during the attack will take damage. Since you are damaging all of the enemies around you, in the essence, this is just another 360 cleave attack. Just that it also moves a little bit forward while you do it. You can actually cancel it out by pressing backwards. Once we have 4 levels of Rogue, we now get access to Uncanny Dodge. I'm going to put this on my shortcut bar and activate it right before a fight together with my haste boost. At level 8, we'll be taking our first level of Fighter. Obviously, I'll be taking another point in Dexterity. For skills, I'll be taking Spot Search and Disable Device and skipping out on Open Lock. For my class feat, I'll be taking Power Critical, which adds +2 to confirm critical hits. Now that we have 1 level of Fighter, we have access to the Kinsey tree. Here I can get access to Quarterstaff through the Druid weapon set or through the General bludgeoning weapon set or through the Monk weapon set. I'm going to take the Monk weapon set since it will also add to the attack and damage of my Shuriken, who happens to be my only ranged weapon. At level 9, I'll be taking my second level of fighter. For my skills, I'll be taking spot, search, disable device, and skipping out on open lock. For feats, for my base feat, I'll be taking combat expertise, which is mutually exclusive with power attack. And for my class feat, I'll be taking whirlwind attack, which is a 360 cleave attack with +4 weapon damage. Combat expertise requires a minimum of 13 intelligence, and it's a prerequisite for whirlwind attack. First, I'm going to place combat expertise next to power attack. As you can see, you can only have one of them active at any time. Next, I'm going to put whirlwind attack with all of the rest of my special attacks on my action bar. And as you can see, whirlwind attack works just fine both with combat expertise and with power attack. I'm going to spend my enhancement points on more attack and damage with quarterstaffs. Here are my attacks. Whirlwind attack, which is a +4 weapon damage and a 360 cleave. Sweeping strike, which is a +5 weapon damage with a 360 cleave and trip. Spring attack, which is a long jump and damages everyone it goes through, effectively making it just like a 360 cleave attack. And staff lunge, which is a +6 weapon damage, and it goes through all enemies and damages them, effectively making that one also a 360 cleave attack. Please note the guardrail directly behind me. Here I'm going to use sweeping strike. It's everyone except for him. Now I'm going to use whirlwind attack, and again will hit everyone except for him. This is very useful and very important to notice. If you do not want to hit someone, make sure he's directly behind you. Here you can see that I am trapped in the center of a group of monsters. But if I use staff lunge, it will make me go through the monsters, effectively getting me out of them. So remember this. Staff lunge is not just a 360 cleave attack, it's also your get out of jail card. For my enhancements, I'm going to take a bit more attack and damage with quarterstaffs. Here's how you crowd control. You're going to gather up a group of monsters, you're going to activate uncanny dodge and haste boost. Then you're going to go in with all of your 360 cleave attacks. That means the whirlwind attack, you want your sweeping strike, you also want to make sure to use your quick strike to add to your double strike, and also using staff lunge to go through them. Also, if you can jump out of the group of the monsters and run through them using your spring attack, again, all of these things will hit all the monsters around you and you'll go through the monsters really, really fast. Also, do not forget to use your monk special attack that is Fists of Light, and once it's charged up, you can use your finishing move to heal yourself up. Note that the same goes for single targets. Even though you do not benefit from the cleave part of the attack, you do benefit from the extra weapon dice from each one of these special attacks. A note about spring attack. It can be very effectively used to quickly close a gap between you and some enemy who wants to get away. Here I've got an enemy who wants to activate a trap, can catch up with him very quickly and kill him before he ever does it. At level 10, I'll be taking my third level of fighter. For my skill points, I'll just take spot, search, and disable device and skip out on open lock. For my action points, I have a choice of haste boost that I already have from Rogue, or attack and damage boosts, which I'll be taking. I now have 2 unique action boosts. They each have their own number of charges, but they share the cooldown timer. You can't have both active at the same time. I am now going to take the second Kinsey core ability, which is Spiritual Bond. Here's how it works. Currently, I have a +5 weapon enhancement. If I attack and roll a 20, it will add a +1 to my weapon enhancement for a short amount of time. If I roll another 20 before the timer runs out, it will add another +1, which will stack with the one that I had before. This can potentially add up a whole bunch of times to a maximum of +10. The faster you attack and the more double strike you have, the better chance you will have at having a multiple stack. At level 11, I'll be taking my 4th level of fighter. For my skill points, I'll be taking spot search, disable device, and skipping out on open lock. For my class feat, I'll be taking improved critical bludgeoning weapon. This will add +1 to my critical threat range. Until now, I had critical threat range of 19 and 20, and now it will be 18, 19, and 20. For my enhancements, I'll be taking fast movement, which increases your movement speed based off your total amount of rogue levels. And I'll be adding some attack and damage with quarterstaffs from the Kinsey tree. At level 12, I'll be taking my 5th and final level of rogue. For my ability score, I will of course be adding to my dexterity. I'll be spending my skill points on spot, search, disable device, and taking this opportunity to fill up all the points I missed in open lock. Also, I'll be putting some points into use magical device. For my feat, I will be taking weapon specialization, bludgeoning weapons. This will allow me to advance even more in the Kinsey tree. At level 5, I can now finally take the rogue tier 5 abilities, but I need a few more action points, so I'm going to reset the fighter Kinsey tree. First, we got +3 to attack and damage with quarterstaffs and +10 melee power. Second, we've got +1 to the critical range with quarterstaffs and +1 to the critical multiplier. Next up, we have spinning staff wall, which is an action boost that gives you +50 PRR for 20 seconds. And passively, it also gives you 5 dodge, 5 dodge cap, and another 5 to your max dex cap. And finally, we have Volt, which is just a pure long jump. It resets every 15 seconds. It has no other requirements other than you having a quarterstaff in your hand. The rest of the points I'll re-spend in the Kinsey tree. As you know by now, spring attack is an attack that acts like a long jump, and you can link it together with Volt to now do a double long jump. Oh, and if you're enjoying this, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Thank you. So here's how it goes. Use your haste boost or attack and damage boost, and then your spinning staff wall, and then uncanny dodge. And then you go to town on everyone with your whirlwind attack, sweeping strike. You can finish up with your staff lunge and your quick strike. You'll be destroying big groups of enemies in no time. Level 13, I'll be taking my 4th level of monk. I'll be spending my skill points in spot search, open lock, and disable device. Anything else I've got left over, I put into balance.
By the edge of the storm.
As soon as I've got enhancement points, I'll re-spend them in the Kinsey tree. At level 14, I'll be taking my 5th level of monk. My skill points again will be spent in spot search, open lock, disable device, and anything over goes into balance. For my enhancements, I'm going to take +1 action boost charges. This will add another charge for both types of action boosts. I'm also going to take a bit more attack and damage from the Kinsey tree. And finally, I'll be opening up the Monk Quarterstaff enhancement tree. At level 15, I'll be taking my 6th level of Monk. For my skill points, I'll take Spot Search, Open Lock, Disable Device. Whatever I've got left over goes into balance. For feats, for my class feat, I'm going to take Two-Handed Fighting. And for my regular feat, I'm going to take Improved Two-Handed Fighting. This requires a minimum of 17 strength. As I said at the beginning of this video, you must have it by level 15. I'll be achieving this with the use of tomes. Now that we have 6 levels of Monk, we get access to Adept of Forms. You can take this at a lower level, but you do not need to since it's auto-granted once you get to 6 levels of Monk. Inside, you can find the upgraded version of the 4 elemental attacks, so don't forget to update your shortcut bars. I'm going to add some Quarterstaff attack and damage from the Monk tree and another action boost from the Kinsey tree. Let me explain Strike Through. Now that I have improved Two-Handed Fighting and Two-Handed Fighting, I have a total of 110% Strike Through. When I attack, I will hit the target I am facing. This is considered my primary target. If I am facing 2 targets, I will be hitting my primary target, whichever target is selected. I have a 100% chance to hit a second target aside from the primary target, with another 10% to hit a third target. The more strike through I have, the more targets I can hit at once, just with my basic attack. At level 16, I'll be taking my 5th level of Fighter. I'll be adding +1 to my Dexterity score, and for skills, I'll be taking Spot Search and Disable Device. I will only have a half a point for Open Lock. At level 16, I now have access to the 5th core in the Aasimar tree, so now I will have even more healing hand charges and they will recharge every 3 minutes. Also, I will take some critical confirmation from the Kinsey tree. At level 17, I'll be taking my 6th and final level of Fighter. For my skill points, I'll be taking Spot Search and Disable Device, and my last half a point will go into Open Lock. For my class feat, I'll be taking Greater Two-Handed Fighting, which will increase my strike through and the bonus to my damage. For my enhancements, I'll be taking the 3rd core tier from Kinsey, Strike with No Thought. This adds a bit of double strike, but more importantly, +1 to the critical multiplier of my Quarterstaff. Also, I'll be taking 1 more action boost charge and a bit more critical confirmation. Let's take a moment to get things straight. Here's a standard critical profile of a Quarterstaff. Its critical threat range is only on 20, and its critical multiplier is ×2. Equipping the weapon will show its updated properties. Now both the drop-down tab underneath my inventory and the description of the weapon when I examine it are both wrong. So let's show you actually how much damage my Quarterstaff does. If I look at my enhancements, I can see that I have Strike with No Thought that adds +1 to my critical multiplier, meaning from a +2 on my multiplier, it should now be a +3. Next we have Staff Specialization, who again adds +1 to my critical multiplier, making it go from a +3 to a +4. and it adds 1 to the critical threat range. So now not only on 20, but also 19. So 1920 times 4. Next, we have the feet, improved critical bludgeoning, which will add another +1 to my critical threat range. So now it's 18, 19, 20 times 4. And finally, we have Swords of Plowshares, who adds another +1 to the critical threat range, for a total of 17, 18, 19, and 20 times 4. Here's how it looks in action. You can see I am hitting enemies for around 100 points of damage. This means my critical hit should be around 400. Here you can see me hitting a critical hit on 20, here on 19, here on 18, and here on 17. Here I'm going to reset my monk enhancements so I can use the action points to get Strike at the Heart. This will add improved destruction to every attack I do with my Quarterstaff. Also, I'm going to take the last point of critical confirmation. Here's what improved destruction does. Here you can see, after I attack the training dummy, it gets this debuff. The more I attack it, the more stacks of this debuff pile up. What this does is help me negate the fortification of the training dummy. As a contract, it has 100% fortification, and I have no chance of hitting a critical strike. But with enough stacks of improved destruction, I can now hit critical strikes and bypass its fortification. This is very, very useful against anything who has full fortification, especially red-named bosses. For level 18, I'll be taking my 7th level of Monk. For my skill points, I'll be taking Spot Search Disable Device and catching up a bit on Open Lock. For my feat, I'll be taking Master of Forms. I'll be respending the points that I took out of the Monk tree, and also taking the ability known as Liquid Courage from the Kinsey tree. Liquid Courage will give you 50 healing amplification for 30 seconds anytime you use something with the drinking animation. Here you can see my healing amplification went from 35 to 85 just by drinking a potion. Note that you cannot increase the duration of this buff, but there's nothing preventing you from rebuffing as soon as it runs out. Level 19, I'll be taking my 8th level of Monk. For skill points, I'll take Spot Search, Open Lock, Disable Device, and whatever's left over I'll put into balance. For level 20, I'll be taking my 9th and final level of Monk. For my ability score, I'm going to be taking Dexterity. For my skill points, I'll take Spot Search, Open Lock, Disable Device, and whatever's left over I'll put into balance. And finally, since now I have 9 levels of Monk, I will be auto-granted one of my favorite feats, Improved Evasion. For my final enhancement points, I will take Way of the Tortoise for some extra hit points and some extra attack and damage with Quarterstaffs. From the Rogue Tree, I can spend 2 points to get 1 extra point of Dexterity, or to get 1 extra point of Dexterity and 1 point of Dodge and +1 to my max Dex bonus on my armor. This seems way better. Inside of Master of Forms, I have the 3rd version of the Elemental Strikes, which I'm of course going to just drag to my shortcut bars. Also, I'll place Meditation, and right next to it, Wholeness of Body. This actually we get once you have 7 level of monks. Again, it's one of those things though I never actually use. Don't worry, I'll show you what it does. First thing though, we're going to take our epic destinies. Fury of the Wild is my epic destiny for when I want to dish out a lot of DPS. Feel free to pause the video if you would like to copy exactly what I did. For Twists of Fate, I take Rain from Fate Singer. I take Regenerative Cocoon from Primal Avatar, and Purify Weapon from Unyielding Sentinel. I use Unyielding Sentinel for when I want to be defensive and tank up. The only difference is I use Sense Weakness from Fury of the Wild. While in Unyielding Sentinel, I use Vigor of Battle, which gives me a total of plus 20% to my total hit points. Oh, and here's what Wholeness of Body does. It allows you to meditate and regenerate health over a period of time. The amount of health you regenerate can be manipulated by taking things like a potion to increase your healing amplification. Also, since there's no rest shrine in this build guide, I think that this would be a good time to ask you please to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. Anyways, like I said before, I never actually use this thing. Here's a side-by-side comparison of my tank layout and my DPS layout. On the left, we've got the tank. He already started his dragon. And on the right, we have the DPS, who's still busy chatting. By the time the DPS starts his dragon, the tank has already done more than 50%. But still, he beats him. Here's a different scenario. On the left, you can see my tank's base hit points is about 1,100. And on the right, my DPS has about 800 hit points. You'll notice, as they go on and fight, my DPS keeps on having his hit points drop and has to stop to heal himself up, while the tank never really has his hit points drop. On the other hand, you can notice that the DPS, every time you would like to get rid of a big threat, can just hit Adrenaline Overload and get rid of it in basically one shot, while the tank has to go through enemies at a slower rate. Here's another scenario to note. We've got on the left, my tank took 3 negative levels, and yet, in spite of all of that, his hit points is still equal to the DPS on the right, showing that he's very hardy, and in spite of taking a lot of hits, can still survive pretty easily. Bear in mind that I am level 20 and this adventure area is level 27. Level 21. For my feat, I'll be taking Overwhelming Critical. This adds +1 to my critical multiplier when I roll a 19 or 20. At level 21, you are auto-granted a feat called Epic Defensive Fighting. Activating this feat will give you an additional 5% to your total hit points. You will get an additional 5% for every combat style feat you have. That means two-handed fighting that I'm using for Quarterstaff. I have 3 of those. Two-handed fighting, improved two-handed fighting, and greater two-handed fighting. With the base of 5%, this will all stack up to plus 20% to my base hit points when I activate it. Its downside is that your ranged power and double shot are both set to 0, and all spells can only be cast at touch range. So if you would like to heal or res somebody, you must be standing right next to him. Of course, you can also just turn it off for a minute and then turn it back on. Level 22, nothing special. Level 23, same. Level 24, I'll take one more point in dexterity. For my feat, I'll be taking Grandmaster of Forms. This is the final monk form. Inside of Grandmaster of Forms, you can find the final version of the monk elemental attacks. Of course, I'm just going to drag them through my shortcut bars. Level 25 is nothing special. Level 26, I'm going to take Perfect Two-Handed Fighting. If you've been following along, this means I'm going to get another 5% to my total hit points from the Epic Defensive Fighting feat. At level 27, I'll be taking Blinding Speed. This gives me permanent haste. Also, it adds +1 to my attack, and +1 dodge, and +1 to my reflex saving throws. Here I'm going to take a moment to reset my Aasimar tree and spend my points on wisdom instead of strength, since I no longer finding myself becoming exhausted or uncentered due to a lack of strength. Here I am demonstrating that the +15% Quarterstaff attack speed that we get from the Rogue enhancement tree stacks with Blinding Speed. And of course, with both of those, also stack the haste boost. At level 28, I'll be taking my final point of dexterity. For my feat, I'll be taking Elusive Target. This effectively means +5% to my armor class. At level 29, I'll be taking Dire Charge. Here I'm going to introduce my sentient weapon. I have 5 slots unlocked, and I'll be using the Prowess set. I've got +2 to my critical confirmation, +1 to my attack and damage, +1 to my dexterity, +3 PRR, and +3 melee power. The highlight of this set is that once you have 5 filigrees, anytime you use an action boost, it adds +50 melee power for 10 seconds. And guess what? I've got 18 action boosts. And finally, Dire Charge is going to fill up the slot on my shortcut bar. A few important notes about Dire Charge. Using Whirlwind Attack will hit all of the targets in close range. Using Dire Charge will also hit all of the targets in close range. Basically, Dire Charge is exactly like a 360 cleave attack. If I select a target and hit Dire Charge, it will make me charge towards it just like a long jump. If I have no target selected, it will just charge towards the target I am facing. If I'm not facing any target, it will charge towards whatever I have in my viewfinder. Dire Charge will work even if you are not facing the selected target. Unlike Whirlwind Attack and Sweeping Strike, Dire Charge will work even if it's exactly behind you. You can use Dire Charge right after Spring Attack, effectively making this a double long jump. Ultimately, this means that if I have a selected target, I can now double jump around corners. As far as gameplay goes, you should know the drill by now. You boost up, use all of your 360 cleaves, just add in Dire Charge. If If you have a target who's a bit out of range, you can use the dire charge to close the distance. Same deal with a single target. Focus on him and also use dire charge. Quick note, dire charge has the same effect as staggering blow. Level 30. For my feat, I'll be taking precision. And for my legendary feat, I'll be taking Scion of Araborea. This gives me plus 20 melee and range power, and also plus 2 to the enhancement of my weapon. At level 30, I get another slot of Twist of Fate. The Precision feat is a stance, which is mutually exclusive with power attack and combat expertise. When I activate this, it gives me plus 25% chance to bypass an enemy's fortification. This is very important in the end game, especially with big red named bosses. Being able to have great critical hits and having an enemy who can completely block them totally negates the purpose of it. For my extra Twist of Fate slot, I added a Dance of Flowers, which is a tier 1 ability from Grandmaster of Flowers. This adds a permanent +1 to my weapon dice. Here you can see that activating Precision increases my chance of scoring a critical strike against things who are immune to critical hits, like constructs. Finally, I've added a quick reference sheet with all of the information of the build laid out in front of you, all the classes, the leveling process with the feats, all of the enhancements, how I spent them, also all the skills, whatever needs to be acquired, the minimal levels, and skill points spent, etc. This is a very good resource. You can save a screen capture or print it out. Finally, a few last things before you go. 1. I have a few videos coming will feature actual gameplay, full long quests at different levels showing how the build actually functions in real time. 2. I would like to make a special shout out to everybody in the YouTube comments who left me encouragement and asked me what's happening with this build. I appreciate it very much. It definitely pushes me to keep on doing this. 3. I would just like to point out that I probably spent more than 12 hours in total just on putting together this video. So if you like it, please hit like and subscribe. I really need it, and I'd appreciate it very much. Thank you. 4. And finally, if you have any feedback or comments, please don't be shy. I'll do my best to respond to whatever I can and try to help you out if you need. Otherwise, enjoy yourself. Have a great time. Bye.